Hello there, this is Unsung with GameLeap, and today we have a very special guide. In this guide, I'm going to be showing you how to beat the highest rated challenger, rank 1 top laner on the North American server, and show you exactly what it takes to lane like a challenger player. In this game, I'm against 100 Thieves Tenacity. In an unfavorable matchup for me, which is Sett versus IRELIA, me being the Sett, we're going to be breaking down every misplay, mistake, and misstep on both sides of this lane phase and give some general rules for top lane. If you want to learn how to beat challenger players, smurf every game, and dominate every single match of League of Legends that you play, head on over to the GameLeap website. The website has hundreds of guides filled with the best information from other challenger coaches such as myself. This sounds pretty good, right? Well, it gets better. Access to our plethora of guides is currently 50% off. What? Unsung. All this knowledge and know-how for 50% off? That's right. You're not going to get a better deal anywhere else. Head on over to GameLeap.com and get started right now. Starting from level 1, you want to count creeps. Top hits level 2 off the first melee creep and the second wave, so you want to either ensure or concede this creep. Usually Sett loses this particular matchup and hard in the early game, but we have our first big mistake here. This is what ends up winning me the early game in this matchup in particular, and let's go over this. So, starting level 1, we have both of us meeting here at the center of our wave. The big thing that IRELIA does here, the first big misplay of this lane phase, is her starting E. If she starts Q, then she gets 3 stacks of her passive instantly. If she goes for this range creep when it comes time for them to go down, she gets a 4th stack. If she Qs onto me, that's 5 stacks. Sett cannot outtrade a 5-stacked IRELIA at any portion of the game. It's very, very difficult for me to contest her. So she has a very, very strong level 1 in comparison to me. So I notice that she starts E and I instantly start to try and hard push this, right? I notice that I take creep aggro, so I take a few steps back, make sure that I break that creep aggro, and he concedes the lane right here. This is his first big mistake, and this is what ends up costing this lane phase, right? So right here, I'm going to push, but not too fast. I want to build a wave, but I don't want to fast push it into her tower. I want to slow push it, right, to ensure that it's going to be harder for him to hit level 2 than it is for me. So we're going to go ahead and start autoing creeps here, and you could see that I have more creeps built up on my side. Right here, I still have my 3 range creeps from the previous wave, and then I have the new creeps coming in from my new wave. So right now, this is my level 2. He has to back up. This is why he steps away, and I'm level 2. So with me having this kind of agency in the lane, he can't really walk up and try to contest me, but once again, I don't want to fast push this. I want to last hit as best I can, and right here, he blows his second E. So I know he's not going to be able to trade me even when he dings to, even if he wants to, because he blew his second E and it's a relatively long cooldown. So I have a little bit of time to drop a ward here before my next wave crashes. So I'm going to go ahead and path down here and drop a ward in this tribush. I do know that I'm against the Fiddlesticks, and we do end up seeing him right here because he ends up autoing this ward, and he does end up putting a red ward here, right? So I know that I'm completely safe to get a couple more seconds. I'm not going to get cheesed here. I'm not going to end up getting jumped on. I'm not going to get chunked out of my lane. So I'm going to take this time and go ahead and drop a ward. Now I'll see the Fiddlesticks if he decides to path over here from his red buff, and I have ample time to run away. So right here, my IRELIA adjusting 2, and I haven't missed a single creep yet, but my next wave is coming in. So he is at a pretty big disadvantage here. So my next couple creeps that I end up hitting give me my level 3. But this is what I mean. So right here, he takes a trade on me, right? And this is kind of a difficult trade for me to reply to because he's able to get his passive up. And because he 5-stacked me, because he got his passive up, I have to disengage here. So this is very smart by him. He ends up dodging my W. I have to run away and just let him win this trade. This is the biggest strength of IRELIA in this matchup. She could just all-in me and dodge my W as she pleases. So I really have to be careful of that. But right here, I know that her E is almost back up, right? I know that we're going to be able to trade again. And this is the first gigantic mistake of this lane phase. Knowing that he wins these all-ins, he's going to go ahead and play a little bit too far up. Right here, I get my Q move speed bonus, and then I cancel his stun with my stun. So right here, he has 2 options, right? And it's to either run away or to try and turn this trade and make it more favorable. So that way we're stuck in even HP in this lane. And he decides to turn it, right? Big mistake. Because first of all, I have a million creeps here. He's going to be tanking these creeps the entire time. Second of all, I already kind of won this trade, right? So he ends up queuing back onto me, and this is it. This is the lane phase being completely over. This is winning through just smart lane manipulation. So even though his champion excels at playing really aggressive in the early game, we countered that by his start. He wasn't able to aggress on me because of what he chose to start, and because he ended up giving up the first wave so hard. So, as I said earlier, my primary goal here is to create a slow push. Now, what is a slow push? A slow push is a minion wave that you build up by only last-hitting creeps when you have at least 1 creep as an advantage, right? When you have 1 creep more than somebody else. So right here, this is what starts my slow push. I kill this middle caster creep right here, and then I have extra creeps. His 2 creeps aren't going to out-damage my 3 creeps over here, so I know for a fact that I can just last hit safely, and unless he does something to break this, it's going to slow push into him. As you could see, I have my 3 caster creeps over here, as well as my new wave, and his wave is already going down. So now that we talked a little bit about starting a slow push, let's go over why you should slow push. There are quite a few situations where you should start a slow push. If you're playing something that's really strong in the early game like Darius, like Renekton, if you're trying to deny people level 2, if you're trying to deny them level 6, these are all points that you want to slow push. If you're going to be setting up a dive, if your jungler's in the area, then you want to start slow pushing. Slow push creates a kind of rubber banding XP effect, right? So all their XP will be stored in the wave. However, if you deny them access to that wave or you deny them an earlier kill on that wave, it makes their XP store up. You can deny all those creeps later on if you end up going through with the dive, or you can try to make like a really strong early champion significantly weaker. If you manage to get a slow push going on, something that's ranged, on something that has a weaker early game like Teemo, when you're playing against something like Renekton who really needs that level 2 to be useful, this by itself can really turn the tides of a lane phase. This is something that really comes into application when you're playing something that has a bad early game or you're playing a poor matchup. A lot of people do give you these opportunities, so you have to make sure that you take them. Next time you're in a game, I want you to be looking for an opportunity to slow push, but make sure that you know that you are going to be slow pushing out. Make sure that you tell somebody that you're either going to need help or you're paying real close attention for that jungler. So let's take a quick little look at the map real quick. So this fiddle is going to be pathing over here. We have an early ward down. I know that the fiddle is probably starting bot side from the early game, seeing that my IRELIA didn't leash, right? So I have my slow push built up here. My wave is about to crash. However, I know it's going to catch in front of her tower, so I'm not really too concerned about missing XP. What am I gonna do here? I'm gonna go ahead and drop down and put my ward in this tribush right here, even though I see the fiddlesticks. So even though the fiddlesticks is seen here, I still have this time to put down this ward, knowing that I'm not going to get chunked by him, knowing that I'm not going to get harassed by him, and knowing that I'm not going to be losing any HP for this. I also don't lose a single creep for this because I started this slow push. So let's go ahead and watch this a little bit. And this right here starts our first big fight. So this is what makes this matchup so difficult for Sett. This is what makes IRELIA so strong into Sett. Right here, we are set back to even, right? And being set back to even isn't quite a position that I ever want to be in this matchup. He can very easily dodge the true damage portion of my W, and I can't really utilize the damage on it to its fullest effect, right? Because he has so many jumps. However, because he wins this trade, he gets a little bit overzealous and he ends up jumping with me and we trade even here, right? Because he's tanking so many creeps from my slow push. This is like the first big gigantic mistake here. As you can see, this creep damage is really adding up, it's really tacking on, and it's really harming him. So right now I hit 3, and we're going to go into a little bit more of an intricate mechanic here. IRELIA's stun is free cast, and Sett's stun has a cast time on it, right? So this means that my stun doesn't start until my little cast bar is already depleted. So right here, I use this to cancel his stun with my stun. This applies to certain champions. You really got to know like how stuns work. However, when you're able to do this, you basically negate the CC. As you can see, my first auto comes out, my first 2 autos come out before he even gets to retaliate. But right here, he goes for the 5 stack, and this is what kind of makes this matchup super difficult. I could have casted a W there, however, he is going to dodge it because he still has another Q. So I play patiently, I wait for his Q, he tries to escape right there, and this is my kill. This is the end of the lane phase through smart wave management. This is how you win a lane, by setting up a slow push against a unfavorable matchup. So now that I killed my opponent, what should I do here? Should I walk this wave under his tower and go for plates, or should I just go base? So this is kind of a trick question. What we do want to do is fast push this as fast as possible and try to get my creeps over here so that way I can get my teleport, or so that way I burn his teleport, so that way I don't have to use mine when I come back. So right here, as you can see, the IRELIA is teleporting back to lane. This means that I now have a teleport advantage. I can either choose to use my TP here with my buy, or I could just walk back to lane. Right here, I'm going to walk back to lane because I don't need to be teleporting to anything. I'm not really going to lose as much as he lost from dying, and I'm not going to bother going for a plate or anything because the top towers still have resistance, right? I'm not going to get a plate there. There's no reason for me to burn my TP here. I want to keep this advantage just in case a fight breaks out in the bot lane, so I could teleport to that. This is what makes top like such a strong role. This is why you get 5-man to bottom. It's because the other top gets to save their TP. As you can see, I had my first buy of the lane phase. I itemized for pretty early game items here because I know that this is an unfavorable matchup, and he does the same. So sacrificing his little bit of scaling is completely fine because he's already lost the matchup. So right now, instead of fast pushing into him and trying to apply my lead, once again, I want to start a slow push. I don't want to let him get towards me. I don't want to let him trade with me openly. I want to make sure that he's last hitting with abilities, blowing his mana, blowing his resources, right? And all of this makes it a little bit easier for me. So right here, I'm just going to last hit. You just want to casually last hit when you want that slow push going. And as you can see, he's zoned off. He's half mana because I've made him use mana to CS, right? But my wave is eventually catching up with me. This is what I mean when I say a slow push is always always going to crash. It doesn't matter how good your freeze is or how good your slow push is, eventually it will crash. So don't be discouraged. So instead of sitting in the lane and waiting for this wave to crash and waiting for the next wave, I'm going to try and make use out of my TP advantage. I see a fight break down in this bot lane and I see them starting to do this Drake, so I'm going to base here and buy a pair of boots and a refillable. All I'm doing is providing insurance for the rest of my team. I want to make sure that if I do end up teleporting here, that I'm going to be as strong as possible for this fight here. So that's why I end up basing here. Once again, we're dead even with me taking that base, because he's not going to be able to deny me too many creeps. I lose 3 melee creeps here. This is about the same that he's lost, so we are back to dead even. This means that I do have a gold advantage, however, I don't have an XP advantage anymore, so I need to play this lane a little bit more safely. So this gives him an opportunity to push back into me, right? This is something that kind of defines top lane as a whole. This gives the ebb and flow of top lane, right? So this is something that you always have to look for. When you're being slow pushed on, you don't want to take a big fight if you are against something that's really strong into you. This is why people create freezes, and their Syndra ends up noticing that we're playing this game, right? And I spot him out here. So right now I know that I'm going to be eating a dive. This is something that I can deal with though. Because I ended up buying these early game items, because I'm in a bad matchup, because I know that I have to deal with an IRELIA, and I've created all these slow pushes and whatnot, I know that I can deal with this wave. I know that I'm going to get a bunch of XP back. So right here, I'm just going to go ahead and tank all this stuff. I didn't even get a chance to use my W there, and that's usually something that's pretty bad for Sett. However, because I bought all these early game items, because I itemized so efficiently, they're not able to drop me because I created that lead for myself. So this is how top lane goes. A big fight, you know, erupts over here. This is completely okay. I don't need to jump into this fight. I'm just here to like make sure that the LeBlanc is able to get her pick if she wants to. I'm just providing insurance, right? And our lane has reset back to the neutral point. What do you do when the lane is reset back to the neutral point when your IRELIA is ultless and you've already got a kill on her? You start another slow push. This is a recurring theme in this matchup. And looky, what do we have here? The same thing that just happened to me also happens to him. So even though I've made mistakes, even though you know, I tried to play the team game and it kind of, you know, bit me in the butt a little bit, it's completely okay, because now my slow pushing, now my advantage all comes to fruition here. So now we have our next gigantic mistake of this lane phase, right? My Graves ends up tanking tower aggro. So this is something that is very bad for me. However, the IRELIA misplays this. Instead of playing this really patiently and, you know, just giving this a little bit more time, she ends up using her E preemptively, thinking that we are going to like hard commit onto her. However, if she just waited for the Graves to auto, if she eat onto the Graves, then she gets to kill him really fast, right? As you could see, I didn't start tanking until the Graves disengaged, which gives us a lot of time, right? So because the Graves ends up disengaging, it gives us like a lot more time to be counter ganked by their Fiddle or by their Syndra if they're in the area. They weren't in the area because they were just top. They wouldn't be back here, right? That we gave them enough time between our tower dive and their showing here that we know they're not going to be around. However, the IRELIA could have very easily won this if she was paying attention to the Graves, and we could have very easily thrown this if I didn't notice this miscommunication real fast, right? So this is something to always be aware of. This is solo queue, and right now, instead of basing after I get this kill, even though it's still relatively early in the game, I want to ensure that I get all these plates. So getting plates in the early game isn't something that you want to do, because you just straight up do not have the damage for it. You know, top turrets have these extra resists, but now that it's a bit later into the game, I can freely go for these plates, even if the IRELIA decides to come back, because I still have my teleport up, because I have all these advantages that I've created for myself, and because I played the early game a little bit better. So as you can see, the item difference between the IRELIA and IRELIA has picked up a Vamp Scepter and a Longsword, and I'm going to go base right now, and you get to see my buy, and my first buy is complete. This is top lane, I get to teleport back, and this is like the story of top lane. This is how you win top lane, by nothing but good wave management. This is how you have a gigantic item advantage, even against some of the best players in the world, by knowing how to manage your waves and by playing safely. You know, I know that this is a very poor matchup for me, so I'm not going to take any unnecessary risks. I'm just going to let the lane play itself, right? I'm going to let him make his own mistakes, and I'm going to win through him. So once again, this is Untitled with GameLeap. I hope that you all have wonderful days, and please remember, be better. Not because you're bad, but because you can always be better. As you can see from this guy, 100 Thieves Tenacity is one of the best players in the region. He's rank 1 challenger. He's the highest ranked top laner on the server, but that doesn't mean that you should give up. So if you learned a thing or two from this guide, then our premium content over on GameLeap.com will blow you away and have you climbing rank after rank. We have a full course dedicated only to top lane guides authored by challenger coaches just like myself, with more Sett gameplay and IRELIA gameplay as well. If you are interested, please waste no time and hit that link on the screen right now to get started.